Ivysaur's back is actually not just like a decoration, it's actually also alive and it grows together with Bulbasaur from the day it is born. Moving on to Ivysaur. When the flower bud on Ivysaur's back starts to bloom, it means that Ivysaur is close to evolving into Venusaur. And here's Venusaur. We're not going to be doing special forms or anything like that. But Venusaur, after a rainy day, Venusaur's flower is said to release a stronger fragrance that can calm people's emotions. For Charmander, Charmander's tail is not just a source of heat, it is actually connected to its life force, and the Pokemon becomes weak if it is exposed to cold or wet environments. And it's also said that if its tail goes out, then the Pokemon also goes out. We'll say it like that. For Charmeleon, Charmeleon becomes a lot more aggressive and hot-headed as it grows stronger, and it's constantly seeking opportunities to fight opponents, and a lot of opponents that may even be more powerful than Charmeleon itself. Next up, Charizard. Charizard's flames are powerful enough to melt huge boulders, but it's said that Charizard will never use its fire on weaker opponents. In fact, Charizard's flames become hotter when it experiences really intense and really tough battles, so it wants to fight opponents that are stronger. It's not going to use this on weaker opponents. So, obviously it has more forms. Next up we have Squirtle. Now, Squirtle's name in German is Shiggy, which I think is really funny. Shiggy. Now, this name comes from Schildkröte. I hope I'm saying that right. Schildkröte, which means turtle, and Iggy. So, it's just kind of like a Shiggy, which is like a cute, playful sound rather than, just being like a direct translation of Squirtle, I guess. Anyways. And next up is Wartortle, who, his long and furry tail is actually a symbol of longevity, and older Wartortle are said to have deeper and more, deeper colored tails. Next up we have Big Man Blastoise, whose cannons are capable of blasting holes through thick steel, and it actually uses these cannons to shoot powerful jets of water. Caterpie is the first Pokemon that was ever shown evolving in the anime when it evolved into Metapod. Now, Metapod, the only natural move that Metapod gets when it evolves from Caterpie is Harden, but it can actually learn other moves through other methods, but yes, usually only Harden. Now, Butterfree. Unfortunately, despite the name being Butterfree, Butterfree does not actually produce any butter. Instead, its wings are actually covered in poisonous scales that it can scatter in order to protect itself. I wish they had free butter though. So, Weedle has a little poison barb on its head, as you can see, which it uses, and it uses this as a defense mechanism against predators. And then we have Kakuna, whose main purpose is essentially to prepare for evolution. So it's just there, hanging still, but it can move slightly when in danger. Next up we have Beedrill, who, as you can see, has 3 poisonous stingers, one on each arm, and one on its abdomen. I guess you can say a tail, maybe, if that helps explain it. However, the one on the abdomen, the lower one, is actually the most poisonous one. Next up is Pidgey, who is known for an excellent sense of direction, and it's actually able to find its way back to its nest even when it is very, very far away. Pidgeotto is a Pokemon that claims a large territory and flies around it to patrol and protect it, as it is essentially becoming its hunting ground, Next up we have Pidgeot, who can fly at incredible speeds, allegedly reaching Mach 2 speed, which is really, really fast. And it's probably one of the only Pokemon that actually loses part of its name when it evolves, because Pidgeotto evolves into Pidgeot. So what happened to the toe? Anyways. have Rattata, whose teeth never actually stop growing, so it constantly has to like bite on things to keep its teeth from becoming way too long. And Raticate's large front teeth are strong enough to chew through hard materials like concrete, so like, you know, the ground essentially. Spearow is known for its loud cry, which it uses to warn others of danger who are likely to come in as a swarm. If you've seen, like, I think it's like the first episode of the anime, you know exactly what this is. And Fearow has apparently existed almost unchanged for many, many years, as it can be seen in ancient murals showing that, you know, it's a Pokemon that has adapted really well to its environment. Ekans is actually the word snake spelled backwards, and Arbok is actually the word cobra spelled backwards. There we go. Pikachu's name actually comes from two Japanese words, which are Pika, which apparently is the sound of an electric spark, and Chu, which is the sound of a mouse squeak. So for us, mice, I guess, go squeak squeak. But in Japanese, apparently they go choo choo, I guess. As another fun fact, there actually is an animal in real life that is called a Pika, which kind of resembles Pikachu, but allegedly there was no correlation there when actually creating the Pokemon. Anyways, Raichu was actually planned, apparently, to have a third evolution called Gorochu, but it was ultimately removed from the games. Some say that the inspiration for the Megas are slightly similar to Gorochu. You can actually find pictures of it. Sandshrew can curl itself into a ball using its tough skin to protect itself from attacks and, you know, roll away from danger. And then we have Sand Slash, who can climb trees using its sharp claws, and obviously it also uses these claws to attack prey and to defend itself. Nidoran female and Nidoran male are the only Pokemon with completely different names for their male and female forms. You know, every Pokemon, some Pokemon have gender differences, but they have the same name. But Nidoran male and Nidoran female are the only ones that are different like that. And they even have different Pokédex numbers. Nidorina cannot breed, although its counterpart Nidorino can. Okay? Then we have Nidoqueen, who apparently, in the original Japanese release of Generation 1, Nidoqueen's weight was incorrectly programmed to be 6 kilograms instead of what it's meant to be, which is 60 kilograms. Just a random fact. For Nidoran male, both Nidoran male and Nidoran female can actually use their large ears to sense danger, helping them detect threats before they get too close. For Nidorino, Nidorino is actually the first ever Pokemon shown in the games, appearing in the iconic opening battle animation of Pokemon Red and Blue, where it's fighting against a Gengar. Nidoking in Generation 1 is actually a very, very popular Pokemon to speedrun Pokemon. I don't really know much about it, but apparently a really famous speedrun strategy, or probably the most famous from what I've seen, is to pick Squirtle, then fight all the way, defeat Brock, and then after you defeat Brock, you catch a Nidoran who you can quickly evolve into Nidorino, and then you have a Moonstone that is like right in the area where it evolves, and you can give the Moonstone to your Nidorino to instantly have a Nidoking very early on in the game, and then you use this Nidoking to wipe the entire game. You basically beat the game with just this Nidoking because it can learn so many moves, and it is such a strong Pokemon, and it can learn a very big variety of moves. Anyways, Clefairy was originally considered to be a possible mascot for the Pokemon franchise before Pikachu became the face of the franchise. So we were apparently close to having Clefairy be like the Pikachu that we nowadays know. You know, Pikachu would not be as famous, I guess. And Clefable was originally a normal type Pokemon when it first came out, but it became a fairy type Pokemon 20 years later when fairy types were introduced. It used to be just a normal type Pokemon, and now it is just a fairy type Pokemon. Vulpix is born apparently with just one tail, but as it grows older, the tail starts splitting up to 6 times. who grab onto one of its tails. Oh, also, by the way, 9 tails, believe it or not, has 9 tails. Next up is Jigglypuff, whose Japanese name is Pudding, which apparently comes from pudding, which I guess it makes sense, but I never really thought about that. Also, it sings and it can put you to sleep, and in the anime, it gets angry and draws on your face if you fall asleep to its song, because it's not trying to actually make you sleep. Anyways, Wigglytuff's body is very flexible, and it can actually inflate itself like a balloon by taking in air. Kinda funky. Zubat has no eyes, and it navigates its caves using ultrasonic waves, similar to, real-life bats. Also, believe it or not, Zubat is a Pokemon that appears a lot in caves. Like a lot. Anyways, next up we have Golbat, who can apparently drain the blood of living creatures using its fangs. And it's said to become more active after feeding. That is a bit scary, but let's not look into that too much. Next up is Oddish. Oddish's leaves are planted into the ground during the day, making it look like, they're just a normal plant. It's also a Pokemon that is only kind of odd. It's odd-ish. A comedian here. Anyways, Gloom's flower produces a strong smell that can actually attract prey, but some people find the smell so bad that they cannot stand being near it. Vileplume's flower is said to have the largest petals in the world. Nice and easy. Paris's mushrooms are actually a parasitic fungi that grow by taking nutrients from the Pokemon's body, so the mushrooms on its back are actually like stealing its food, I guess, in a way. And for Parasect, when Paras evolves into Parasect, the mushroom completely takes over its body, essentially controlling the host. So the Parasect is basically the mushroom itself. Kinda scary. Next up we have Venonat, whose large eyes are actually made up of a lot of very tiny eyes. Just like, real insects, they also have a lot of tiny eyes, which kind of look like a big eye. Anyways, Venomoth's wings are covered in scales, and the powder that falls from these scales can be very poisonous. Then we have Diglett, whose body has never been seen. Wow. Dugtrio are said to be one Pokemon together instead of 3 Digletts, but we don't know how they are even connected since nobody's seen them above ground. Meowth is the only Pokemon that can naturally learn the move Payday, which what this move does is it creates money during the battle, right? But as a fun fact, Team Rocket's Meowth said that he is not able to learn Payday because he learned how to walk and speak like a human instead. So he said that him being able to walk and talk made him lose the ability to learn the move Payday, which would have been really helpful for Team Rocket because they never have money. But yeah. Next up, we have Persian, whose jewel on his forehead is said to be really, really valuable, and it is why Persian is a Pokemon often associated with, having wealth and is like having power, Next up we have Psyduck, who is constantly suffering from headaches, very unfortunately, but when the pain becomes too much, it can actually unleash a powerful psychic attack or powerful psychic abilities. And Golduck can actually swim incredibly fast, and it is described as a very powerful swimmer that uses its webbed hands and feet. Also, unfortunately, despite it being called Gold Duck, it is not a golden duck, and also it is not a psychic type Pokemon. But Psyduck had this whole psychic theme of headaches going on, but Golduck is not psychic. Anyways, Mankey is a monkey. There we go. Oh yeah, okay. It can also get super angry to the point that it literally forgets anything else. And Primeape is basically Mankey, but a lot angrier. Growlithe is the main Pokemon that Officer Jenny uses. It has a great sense of smell, and it can remember any scent, so it's, classic police dog sort of Pokemon, perfect for tracking down criminals. Arcanine is literally known as the legendary Pokemon, despite not being a legendary Pokemon. Okay? Next up is Poliwag, who Poliwag's swirl is going clockwise when starting from the outermost part of the swirl, right? However, Poliwhirl's swirl goes counterclockwise, so in the opposite direction. And Poliwrath's swirl actually maintains the same direction as Poliwhirl. Abra spends 18 hours a day asleep, but it can still use its psychic powers while it is asleep. Kadabra carries a spoon. There we go. I'm joking. Nintendo was actually sued for Kadabra because there was a magician called Uri Geller, I have no idea if I'm saying that right, that claimed that Kadabra was actually an appropriation of his identity because he was also very famous for like doing tricks with bending spoons, stuff like that. So he sued Nintendo, and Kadabra went 20 years basically being like, banned from the card game and from the anime. And semi-recently, I guess it came back. But yeah, Alakazam has 2 spoons, which means he can eat double the ice cream. What a legend. Oh yeah, and also he has an IQ of 5,000 apparently. Machop is constantly training. Machoke wears a belt that actually apparently helps it suppress its incredible strength. So if you take off the belt, it would be even stronger. That's crazy. And Machamp is said to be able to deliver hundreds of punches in seconds, so but very, very fast. Now, Bellsprout is very flexible, and it can actually move and bend like a vine. Also, there is a tower in Johto named after Bellsprout. Weepinbell, his body, or its body I guess, is shaped like a bell, and it uses this like large leaves to help it move and to attack. Big Trubel is based on a pitcher plant, which is actually a real plant that traps insects using a deep cupped shake structure. It's a plant that looks pretty much like Big Trubel, and it's crazy to see in real life because I see it and I'm like, oh my god, that is literally the Pokemon. Like what? Anyways, Tentacool, apparently most of its body is made of water, and it's also, I think it's pretty cool of a Pokemon. Tentacruel, however, has 80 tentacles apparently, and it's quite a cruel Pokemon. There we go. Geodude often apparently just, looks like a rock. It's a geode that is a dude. There you go. Then Grappler rolls down mountains at really high speeds and rarely worries about obstacles because its rocky body is so tough, so it'll just be rolling down a mountain and then let's hope no one's on its way. Golem will actually shred its rocky shell as it grows, leaving behind a new, harder body underneath. Bonita's flames are soft enough that they do not burn the people it trusts. If you've watched that one episode, you know all about it. But they become hotter as Bonita grows stronger. Rapidash can reach extremely high speeds, with Pokédex entries describing it as being able to run faster than 150 miles per hour. Slowpoke's tail is often used as a delicacy, so you can actually eat it apparently, and it's apparently really like delicious and a delicacy. But good for Slowpoke, it actually grows back if the tail is lost. Slowbro is the only Pokemon that evolves when a Shelder bites onto its tail, and apparently if the Shelder lets go of the tail, it turns back into a Slowpoke. Crazy. I wish we could do that in like the games. I don't think that'd be so silly. Next up we have Magnemite, who in Generation 1, Magnemite was only an electric type Pokemon, but it later became electric and steel when Steel type was introduced in Generation 2. And Magneton is actually 3 Magnemite linked together. share the same thought, so they can coordinate while they are moving. The trio has 3 heads, and they actually take turns sleeping, so that one of the heads at least is always aware of its surroundings. Seal, despite being called seal, it's not actually, it looks like it's closer to being based on a sea lion rather than a seal, you know. In fact, it is actually known as the sea lion Pokemon, so yeah. Dugong can survive in extremely cold waters because its body is covered with a thick fur that keeps it warm. Grimer was created from a polluted sludge and appeared when waste from factories contaminated rivers. That's a bit sad, actually. Muk has one of the shortest names, Pokemon names in English. It only has 3 letters, obviously, right? Muk. The only other Pokemon that has 3 letters is Mew. Shelder, when it bites onto a Slowpoke's tail, it can cause Slowpoke to evolve. And Cloyster's shell is so hard that even powerful attacks struggle to break through it. Ghastly, believe it or not, is made almost entirely of poisonous gas, and Haunter can sneak through walls and scare people by licking them with its long tongue. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that. Gengar can actually hide completely in shadows, and it's known for approaching people without being noticed. Onyx. Now, Onyx grows by absorbing minerals from the earth, and as it gets older, the boulders that make up its body become harder and rougher. Drowsy eats people's dreams. Scary. And it can actually tell what kind of dreams they're having based on the scent that it was almost giving off. Hypno uses the pendulum it carries to hypnotize people in Pokemon. Scary. Now Krabby is a crab, and Kingler is a bigger crab. Wow. Voltorb looks like a Pokemon. It is also Pokemon number 100 in the Pokédex. Just a fun fact right there. Now Electrode is a bigger Pokeball with the colors reversed. It also really likes to explode, apparently. Execute may actually look like a small group of eggs, but it's actually a single Pokemon made up of 6 individual parts that communicate with each other. Oh, it's also a really hard name to spell. Like, what do you mean? Exec, double G, cute, what? Anyways, Executor. It has 3 heads, and they are said to be able to think independently, and each head can have its own thoughts and even personality. Next up we have Cubone, who will apparently wear the skull of its deceased mother, which is why it's known as the lonely Pokemon. That's so sad. Hitmonlee, that's one after. Marowak uses the bone it carries as a weapon, and it can even throw it like a boomerang. Here's Hitmonlee, who is actually named after Bruce Lee, right? But in Japanese, it is called, sorry for my pronunciation, Sawamular, and it is apparently based on a famous kickboxer known as Tadashi Sawamura. Hitmonchan comes from Jackie Chan, right? But in Japanese, it's called Ebiwalar, and it is based on a famous boxing champion called Hiroyuki Ebihara. I hope I'm saying this right. Lickitung. In the anime, Jessie actually had a Lickitung, but she accidentally traded the Lickitung for her iconic Wobbuffet, and that's how she got her Wobbuffet. She accidentally traded away her Lickitung for it, which was actually a nice Pokemon for Jessie. But yeah, anyways, then we have Coughing, who Coughing was actually originally named NY, which is a nod to New York, you know, NY, New York. And this was a nod to New York having a lot of air pollution. And Wheezing was originally named LA, which is a nod to Los Angeles having a lot of air pollution. Rhyhorn's bones are 1,000 times harder than human bones. Rhydon was actually the first Pokemon that was designed, apparently. Chansey is the Pokemon that Nurse Joy tends to have. It is a very caring Pokemon that likes to heal others. Nobody really knows what is underneath Tangela's vines, and Kangaskhan always has a baby in its pouch in order to protect it. Horsey shoots ink into the water when it is threatened, and Cedra's body is covered in poisonous spikes. Goldeen is known as the Water Queen. Also, if you search it up, its cry in French is hilarious. Anyways, and Sea King is not officially the king of any sea, but its name is Sea King. So Staryu's core is this like red gem, right? It's called a core, and it can actually regenerate its entire body even if it is damaged from this core. Starmie, its outer section can actually rotate freely, and its core is said to shine in 7 colors. The Pokemon cry, the Pokemon cry in French for this one is also quite funny if you want to look at it as well. Anyways, Mr. Mime in Generation 1 could only be a male, right? Because they're like, oh, Mr. Mime, okay? However, starting from Generation 2, it can either be male or female. So we love a progressive Pokemon. Anyways, Scyther's blade-like arms are sharp enough to slice through almost anything, and it uses them to cut grass and also to attack prey. Jinx can use its voice to influence the actions of people in Pokemon, almost like a magical singer. Electabuzz gathers near power plants because it loves electricity. Magmar's body temperature is so high that it can actually cause flames to appear around it. Pinsir uses its giant horns to grab opponents, and it can even lift objects in the air that are way heavier than Pinsir is. Ash caught 30 Tauros in the anime, which means that Tauros has to be Ash's favorite Pokemon, right? If he caught 30 of them. Magikarp is inspired by the legend of a carp that swims up a waterfall and then it becomes a dragon, which obviously is what it connects it to its evolution of Gyarados, right? However, Gyarados is not a dragon, despite of this legend, but it can actually fly. So, yeah, it's a water flying type Pokemon, and you can actually see Gyarados fly, which is terrifying. If it's already terrifying in the water, imagine it flying at you. Lapras was apparently once almost hunted to extinction because people wanted to use it for transportation and stuff like that, but the population later recovered. Ditto can transform into any Pokemon it sees, copying its appearance, abilities, and moves. Eevee's unstable genetic makeup allows it to evolve into many forms depending on the environment and conditions it experiences. If you want to know more, watch my Eevee video. Anyways, Vaporeon. Did you know that in terms of... No, we're not doing that. Vaporeon can dissolve in water and become almost invisible. Jolteon is my favorite evolution. Yeah, that's the fact, we're going for it. Flareon. Did you know that in terms of human companionship, Flareon is objectively the most huggable Pokemon? While their maximum temperature is slightly too much for most, they are capable of controlling it, so they can set themselves to the perfect temperature for you. Along with that, they have a lot of fluff, making them undeniably soft to the touch. But that's not all. They have a very respectable special defense stat of 110, which means that they are very likely very calm and resistant to emotional damage. Because of this, if you have a very bad day, you can vent to it while hugging it, and it will not mind. It can even make itself more endearing with moves like Charm, Baby Doll Eyes, ensuring that you never have depression ever again. So, get yourselves a nice fluffy Flareon. Next up we have Porygon, who is actually a virtual Pokemon being created from a programming code. So, is Porygon a Digimon? Omanyte. All hail Lord Helix. What else do I need to say? Omastar is a fossil Pokemon which comes from the Helix fossil. All hail our Lord Helix. Anyways, Kabuto is based on an ancient horseshoe crab. And its fossil was revived after being extinct for millions of years. Kabutops is just Kabuto, but plural, so a lot of Kabutos, right? I don't know. Aerodactyl was revived from an old amber, which is apparently different from just a normal fossil. Snorlax in German is called Relaxo, and I think that is a perfect name, honestly. Articuno is one of 3 legendary birds, and it's like number 1 because Arctic, uno, as in, 1. Then you got Zapdos, which Zap, Dos, number 2. And then you got Moltres, so Molt, Tres, number 3. Dratini is a tiny dragon. Dragonair can apparently control the weather with the orbs around its neck and the orbs around its tail as well. Dragonite is a bit of a meme in Spain actually because of this picture right here. It is shown often while listening to like the Spanish national anthem or something similar like that. Just a funny one, I guess. Mewtwo was created through genetic experiment using Mew's DNA, but it became so powerful that it developed its own will and escaped from its creators. And finally, Mew is said to contain the DNA of every single Pokemon. And that's it. That's one fact for every single Kanto Pokemon. What was your favorite? What was your least favorite? Okay, maybe just what was your favorite? Do you know any other fun facts about any Pokemon? Really? Let me know in the comment what is your favorite fact. I, for example, really like, that's not like it's called Relaxo. And I like a lot of these silly ones. Let me know any facts you know. And let me know if you want me to do this for Generation 2. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe. I have to remember to say that. Thank you so much once again, and I'll see you on the next one.